It's Josh Lau here with my good friend Nathan Crawford, and this is part 2 of the Dusk Till Dawn card review. Today we're going to be focusing on Vynnset. We're going to be going over all of the Shadow Runeblade cards, all the Shadow cards, all the Runeblade cards, with the man himself, Nathan Crawford.
We're gonna dim the light. We're gonna
Yeah,
dim the light a little bit.
yeah. Yeah. So, if you are interested in Light Warrior, go watch that video. If you are interested in Prism or Levia, find another channel. What am I?
Yeah.
This is you got two specialists here. What can I say?
Yeah.
All right. So, last time we talked about the Light Warrior cards, and I did a lot of the talking. Now it's time for you to do most of the talking here because this is unfamiliar territory for me. I guess I will
Sure.
be acting as the guy that asks a lot of questions more than
Sure.
providing answers. Okay, so I guess the very first thing we need to do is talk about the new hero because Bolton didn't change.
Yep.
But Chain is no longer here, and we have Vynnset, Iron Maiden, 4 intellect, Shadow Runeblade hero, 40 health. At the start of your turn, banish a card from your hand. If you do, create a rune chant token. That is mandatory. You must banish a card from your hand.
Yep.
Whenever you play a shadow non-attack action card, you may pay 1 life. If you do, the next rune chant effect that would deal damage this turn cannot be prevented. Okay. A hero that is radically different than Chain.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a hero that's going to be utilizing the runegate mechanic as their core mechanic. And we'll probably bring along a few of the good old friends from the Monarch set as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is a hero that you could run any of the Runeblade weapons, but there's also a one-handed flail as well as an offhand available to Vynnset. So the Flail of Agony is a Vynnset specialization that attacks for 1. It's a Shadow Runeblade weapon, and it says once per turn action, pay a life, and attack. When this hits, create a rune chant token. Okay. Do you want to analyze this card now, or do you want to look at it in combination with the Grimoire?
Yeah, it's all three got to go together, so we can go and
Okay.
go over the Grimoire real quick.
Okay, so the Grimoire of the Haunt, as an instant, pay 1, banish this, create an Eloquence token. So Eloquence token says the next non-attack action that you play gains go again. It also has AB1, Arcane Barrier 1, and it also has Blood Debt. So, first of all, does Vynnset have an ability or a way to turn off Blood Debt?
Nope.
Okay, so that means
that is late game.
that means this thing is not going to be used until the very, very end of the game.
Yep.
And if you bank cards in your... I've seen a lot of people compare the Banish Zone for Vynnset to the uncNCable Arsenal. If you keep cards in the uncNCable Arsenal, you take damage, right?
Sure.
So why don't you just talk a little bit about the Vynnset in general and how this weapon and offhand play into things.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll start with the hero. So the hero ability is divided into the 2 parts, like Josh mentioned, and the top half is 10 times more important than the bottom half. The bottom half, you basically translate that to you trade life to make sure that an effect on a card executes. Right. Currently, there's no card in the game that stops that from happening. Whether they have Ward, Oasis, or Spite, does not matter. None of that. The act of triggering Arcane Barrier is prevention. So you cannot AB if they activate the pay 1 life ability. So if you do trigger the second part of Vynnset's ability, that is guaranteed damage, also guaranteed effect if the card talks about heroes losing life and such. So that's all that's used for. The top part is everything. The top part is absolutely everything. The flail. The most important thing to keep in mind is typically people have a a mindset of if you have a weapon, you kind of like are kind of safe from fatigue. That is not the case here with this weapon because the attack costs life. So if the opponent gets you to 1, you can never swing. Therefore, it kind of just turns you into a pseudo ranger in that situational mechanic of being fatigued. So just be careful with that. Just like Josh mentioned with the question, there's no way to turn off blood debt. So the Grimoire is it's a good card, but you have to use it very late for like a final push kind of thing. Also, it's a very convenient way to sneak in a little arcane barrier if depending on who you're playing against. That's also going to come up with another. Runeblade now has a very convenient way to create AB4, which could see some play in the future depending on how the meta shakes out a little bit. Yeah, so we can go ahead and start rolling into the cards, Josh, if you want.
Okay. All right. So like we said with the last video, the Majestics often signal to us what the hero is intended to do on their powerful turns. And there is a cycle of cards, just like the bannerets for Bolton. There's a widespread cycle for Shadow Runeblade in the set. So widespread ruin costs 2, widespread destruction costs 3, widespread annihilation costs 4. So it's kind of ascending there. And they also are different pitches, right?
Yep.
Okay. And so I'll just read the cards for you guys. So Widespread Ruin is a 2-cost red pitch, 6 power Shadow Runeblade attack action card that defends for 3, and it has runegate. So runegate is if you control rune chance equal to or greater than the cost, which is 2, you may play it from the Banished Zone without paying its energy cost. When the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life this turn banishes the top card of their deck, and this card has Blood Debt. Widespread Destruction, 3-cost yellow, 6-power Shadow Runeblade attack action that defends for 3, also has runegate, and has Blood Debt. When the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life this turn banishes a card from their arsenal. That's pretty powerful, considering the hero ability of Vynnset basically ensures that heroes will lose life. Widespread Annihilation. This is a 4-cost blue pitch, 6-power, 3 defense Shadow Runeblade attack action with runegate and Blood Debt. And it says when this combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life this turn banishes a card from their hand. Okay, so in short, they all have 6 power. They all defend for 3. They all have runegate. They all have Blood Debt. Widespread Ruin is if you've lost life, you banish the top card of their deck. Destruction is if you've lost life, you banish a card from their arsenal. And Widespread Annihilation is if you've lost life, you banish a card from their hand. This is for both heroes.
Yep.
All right.
And so we'll kick it off. So first thing to note is to differentiate the difference within runegate of the cost of the card. Okay, so the difference in a 2-cost versus a 3, because the mechanic of runegate itself is not like the card Amplify the Arknight, right? Amplify the Arknight says that its cost is reduced by 1 for each rune chant you have, right? So you can have 1 rune chant, it costs 3, so now it costs 2, and you can just pitch the 2. Runegate is all or nothing. Either you have the rune chants or you don't. And it's also the only way you can play it out of Banished Zone. So if it's in the Banished Zone, you can't just pitch to play it like you could chain. So that's an important differentiation that you have to make. Now, the attack or non-attack, whatever it may be, if it has, runegate is only specifically for attacks, but the runegate mechanic, the difference in the card costing 2 and 3 is massive.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll kind of get into explaining that later in the cards, but this is going to sound hypocritical. The difference between 3 and 4 is actually very minimal. So you're still jumping by 1, but the way that you create rune chants in the game and the current mechanics that you have in the card pool, it's very hard to get to 3. But there's cards like Revel and Runeblood and Read the Runes that can guarantee that you get to 4 very easily. So it's just getting to 3 is the difficult aspect.
And I believe there are no runegate cards that cost 1 in the
Correct.
set.
Correct.
So you're going to have to fire things off with at least 2 rune chants. Okay. Is there anything in particular you want to talk about with these cards, or are they kind of just like setting the stage?
They kind of set the stage, but the most important thing is you did a perfect job of like just showing all the similarities side by side and everything. But the mental effects that are different, the way you should read those little text boxes, the middle ones, the actual effect is you have 2 options when executing this card. You can either activate the Vynnset ability if you've played a Shadow non-attack, and you can force the execution of that effect on both parties, right? Because you will take a damage due to Vynnset's ability, and there's no way they can prevent the arcane from the rune chant you made at the start of your turn when you execute this card. Or you cannot trigger Vynnset's ability and turn that into an on-hit effect, right? Because you have not taken any damage that turn. But when you play the card, if it hits and the combat chain closes, it will now trigger on them. So that's where widespread destruction and widespread annihilation kind of get a lot more value. Is if you can add 1 damage on it via like shadow puppetry or anything like that and give it kind of a break point and not pay into Vynnset, then you just have like a really good on-hit effect that doesn't really apply to you. You can manipulate things. This deck is all going to be about looking at the now and trying to mold it into something. It's going to be a very hard deck to play, but I think it'll be very rewarding for those who can.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the other 3 Majestics that Shadow Runeblade got this set. So there's 4 cards here because Nazareth is related to Oblivion. Okay, so let's talk about Funeral Moon first. 0 cost, only comes in red, Shadow Runeblade action that blocks for 3. You will note in this set that a lot of these cards block for 3. There are very few cards that are blocking for 2, so Vynnset is pretty tanky. It says, you may play this from your Banish Zone. If a hero has lost life this turn, you may play this as though it were an instant, create a rune chant, and this has Blood Debt. You want to talk about this one first, or you want to...
Yeah, we can hit these one by one since they're all kind of like very
bit
different.
Yeah.
So Funeral Moon is great in the fact that it's one of the cards that have Blood Debt that's kind of like shadow based for Vynnset, because it involves making rune chants. It's a very easy one to execute, right? There's a lot of scenarios where you can just block 3 cards, keep this card in hand, and you can just banish it at the beginning of your turn and then pass turn, right? You'll take 1 damage, but you'll make a rune chant, so it's kind of a wash there. And then on your opponent's turn, you just make sure one of their attacks hit because you didn't present any damage, so they're attacking with something. And you make sure you take at least 1 point of damage, then you trigger it from the Banish Zone, get your 2nd rune chant, and then at the beginning of your turn following, you will make another rune chant, which is your 3rd, which will turn on all your runegate except for 1 card.
So and
it blocks 3.
Okay, so you're getting multiple rune chants out of this 1 card.
Negative. You're only getting 1.
You're not getting 1 even from the hero banishing this? Assuming that you banish this.
Right. Okay. So you get 1 from banishing it, and then you get 1 for playing it, and then the 2nd turn after you've taken damage on your opponent's turn, you then begin that turn by banishing a different card, which is the card that you intend to actually play out. Will give you your 3rd rune chant, which turns on all your rune gate. So this is just a very easy way to get the rune gate. It's a 2-turn cycle rune gate guarantee is what it is.
Yeah, I was having a very hard time seeing how this was like used, but it makes sense now that you laid it out. So you're basically supposed to use this to chain into another attack the next turn. Okay.
Exactly.
So it seems like a great card then. Okay, Requiem for the Damned. This is a 0 cost, only comes in red, Shadow Runeblade action that blocks for 3. You may play this from your Banish Zone. It also has Blood Debt, just like Funeral Moon. If a hero has lost life this turn, you may play this as though it's an instant. Crit an Alchemist record. Okay, actually, this is almost the same thing as a funeral moon, except create an eloquence
Yep.
token instead of a rune chant token. Okay, so
Exact
so
same thing.
so how would you use Requiem for the Damned?
Okay, so Requiem can be used in a multitude of ways. The lowest hanging fruit would be to utilize it to give a Read the Runes Go Again,
Okay.
or a Tome of Findale from Arsenal, whatever the case may be. Whatever high, because typically, if a non-attack does not have Go Again, it is typically of a way higher power level than those with Go Again. And this is just a very easy way, because it's 0 cost, 3 block. There's not a lot of opportunity cost paid in running it. And it's a very easy way to kind of get the ball rolling on a turn. The only thing is, if you get this card and you don't have a very convenient way to execute it, it's very risky banishing it, because if you don't get one of those cards where you need an eloquence token, then it's just sitting there ticking damage away.
Mhm.
And you can't just yeet it out for no effect, but that just doesn't feel great. So I don't think it's as good as Funeral Moon, but if you
Mhm.
build your deck around doing you have a heavy Read the Runes package, or you're trying to do tomes from Arsenal to kind of bring the life back up and then sacrifice a little bit down, I could see it.
Sure. Okay. All right. So the next card is Oblivion. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the legendary Vynnset specialization. So you can only have one in your deck. Costs 0, pitches for 3. It's a Shadow Runeblade instant. It says play this only if you control exactly 6 rune chants. And it says create a Nazareth the Soul Harrower token, which is to the right. And it says it is a 6 power Shadow Demon ally with 6 health. And once per turn, it can attack for a cost of 0. When it hits a hero, banish a card from their soul. If a light card is banished this way, gain 1 life. So another Shadow Demon ally that hates on Prism and Bolton.
Yep.
This so of note, it is actually very easy to control. Like, some people might think, oh, you have to have exactly 6 rune chants. That's kind of hard. What happens if I have 7 or 8?
Nope. Yep.
Nope, it's easy. So if you have 8, you just let 2 of them fire off, because rune chants trigger individually, and then
Yep.
you cast Oblivion, and then you let the other 6 fire off.
Yep. Exactly.
In succession. All right. I'm guessing that this is probably not played in every deck, right? Because
No.
you're
Yeah.
never going to get to 6 rune chants with some builds of Vynnset.
Mhm. The way that I look at this card is, are you running Revel and Runeblood? No, this card should not exist in your deck. Because the most consistent avenue that I've come across of ways to create a situation where I can cast Oblivion is to play a non-attack, and then play
Mhm.
Revel, and then pop Vexing. Is like a very like realistic routine way to get this off. And it's actually one of the reasons why in 95% of my deck builds, I prefer Vexing Cool Hand over Grasp of the Arknight way more. I just think overall this deck is trying to do that way more than blocking from. It's still in the deck, still in the sideboard for like Guardians and stuff where I really need the block. But
It's a
yeah,
get out of jail free card once. It's like,
absolutely.
oh,
Absolutely. Right.
I need rune chants now, not later, now.
Yeah. Well, the way you should look at it is Vexing Cool Hand is worth 4, whereas Grasp is only worth 3, because Vexing gives you 2 damage and a discount of 2, which is 4 value.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you extract more value from the Vexing Cool Hand than you do the Grasp. Although you got to factor in on hits and stuff like that from Grasp. But overall, Oblivion's great, but you need to have a plan. Thank God it's blue. If it wasn't, it'd be very bad card. This card should not be compared to Eclipse, because Eclipse was, it sat in Banished Zone, didn't ping, didn't do any damage to you, and then when it was convenient, you executed it. This, it's like you draw it, and if you feel like you might can execute it soon, you can Arsenal it. Very risky, wouldn't recommend it. But 9 times out of 10, it's draw it. Can you do it? No, pitch it.
How
You'll
often is Vynnset going to be pitching cards?
Depends on the deck building style. I have one that pitches every turn and one that never does.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
Okay. So we'll get there when we get there, I guess. Okay.
yep.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next few cards. All right. So, we got a pair of rare Shadow Runeblade attack action cards here. Like I said in the other video, rare cards often indicate that they are, because of the commoner format exists, rare cards are generally a little bit more powerful than commons. That's why we've delineated them and separated them. All right, so Deathly Delight is a 2-cost, 5-power Shadow Runeblade attack action card that defends for 3 with runegate and blood debt, and it says when the combat chain closes, gain life equal to the number of heroes who have lost life this turn. So you can always ensure that you lose life with Vynnset. And this
not always. You have to play Shadow non-attack, but
okay, it's fairly easy to hurt yourself,
right?
But this gives an on-hit effect, which is we actually, this is kind of the first set where we're seeing like some life gain. We saw some life gain with Bolton. We see some life gain with Vynnset. It's very interesting. This is a 2-cost runegate card, so I presume this is going to be a pretty important card.
Yes, the Deathly Delight is, along with Deathly Well, these are by far, and it's not even close. These are the 2 best runegate cards created yet, even better than the Majestics. The Majestics are good, don't get me wrong, but these 2 specifically are leaps and bounds above all the rest, no matter what.
Okay. And since you mentioned Deathly Well, similar to Deathly Delight, 3-cost, 6-power Shadow Runeblade attack action that defends for 3 with runegate and blood debt. When the combat chain closes, create rune chant tokens equal to the number of heroes who have lost life this turn. This card makes me think that you probably want to run AB against Vynnset. Against Chain, you were like, maybe not. Against Briar, you're like, nah, I don't really want to. Against Viscera, you basically had to. And looks like it's shaping up that Vynnset's probably another hero you probably want to run at least AB1 against.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. I think that was my train of thought in the beginning, but now I believe it's a trap. And the reason is on a lot of the effects, right? I guess it depends on what your strategy is. If you're trying to fatigue her, then obviously, right? But she's gonna execute this strategy if she wants to. She's gonna play the Shadow non-attack. She's gonna play it. It's unpreventable, right? She's gonna get her rune chance. So if you're in a more aggressive manner into her, I don't think you need to be running AB. But I guess this is a good chance, having these 2 cards side by side. It's a good reason to explain why there's a huge gap between RuneGate 2 and RuneGate 3. And the reason for that is at any point in a Vynnset game, you can always take a turn off, banish a card at the beginning of the turn that you plan on playing. So let's say I got 4 cards, Deathly Delight is one of them in like 3 blocks, right? You block 9, beginning of your turn, you banish Deathly Delight, right? And then you're obviously going to take 1 damage, but you made a rune chance, so it's a wash. And then the next turn, you can not block at all, and you can go Mauve Skies or banish your card Mauve Skies into this because you have 2 rune chants now, right? So you can always take a turn off, take a turn on, 2-turn cycle, cast RuneGate without any assistance, just off of the hero ability. Also, you have cards like Rune Chant or Runeblood Incantation that make 1 rune chant at the beginning of your turn. That turns these into like just auto cast, right? But there's no way to get that 3rd one. That 3rd rune chant is much more difficult to come by, and you have to start leaning into things like you have to have the incantation and do the 2-turn cycle, or you have to play or read the runes, or you have to have a blessing of Oculate, or whatever the case may be. There's cards out there. It's just the difference between RuneGate 2 and 3 are massive in the ability to acquire that 3rd. It takes a whole nother card, no matter how you cut it, to get to that 3rd rune chant. Very important.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, let's talk about some other cards. Let's move on.
Mhm.
All right, so we have some common Shadow Runeblade attack action cards. Rift Skitter is a 3-cost, 4-power, blocks for 3 with Runegate and Blood Debt, and this has Go Again.
Mhm.
Phantom Banshee is a 3-cost, 7-power Shadow Runeblade attack, the defensive 3 with Runegate and Blood Debt, and has no other text. Phantom Wraith is a 2-cost, 6-power, blocks for 3 with Runegate and Blood Debt.
Mhm.
Okay, so these do not have a lot of text on them. If you ignore the reminder text,
Yep.
they all have Runegate, they all have Blood Debt. They just have different numbers on them, and Rift Skitter has Go Again. Okay,
Mhm.
how are these useful, and
Okay.
when would you use them?
So Rift Skitter should just be looked at as Rune Flash, right? It's Rune Flash that doesn't get penalized by Vynnset's ability. Okay. So automatically a deck building requirement for Vynnset is you have to run approximately 30 blood deck cards that can be played from Banish. You need to draw at least one a turn. If you do not, then you effectively IP yourself because you're turning one card into one value. And if you can't play it from Banish Zone, it's bad, right? You almost pummel yourself. So that's why you have to run cards if you're on that heavy go against strategy. Cards like Rift Skitter and stuff like that is to up the amount of cards playable from Banish Zone. Phantom Banshee and Phantom Wraith is exactly what I explained on the last slide. There's a huge difference between Runegate 2 and 3, and you get more value extracted from executing it. Is why you get a higher rate on the 3.
Are you going to be playing Phantom Wraith and Phantom Banshee when the other 2 cards exist?
Yes.
You
To
just need
get to
enough of
that
them.
30 number. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's solely for that reason.
Mhm.
I think Phantom, once again, you're playing the 2 cost are so much better than the 3 cost. And it's
Is
if
it
Deathly Well didn't make more rune chance, it wouldn't be playable, right?
is it such that you would prioritize playing the blue version of Phantom Wraith over like red versions of other cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's that much of a difference, especially because the blue Phantom Wraith has still a breakpoint of 4. So if you were to put like a mauve on it or something like that, you still at least have some breakpoint. So not to say I do run Phantom Banshee,
Mhm.
but Rift Skitter it just isn't it. If it was a 2 cost, I'm all for it. But it's too much risk. And you need this deck. The odd thing about Vynnset that's historically never been considered for Runeblade is you need to have a reason to go again.
Hmm.
Runeblade, it's always been, I need go again so I can swing the most broken weapon in the game, right? Whereas Vynnset, it's you legit have to have a reason. Like, do I need the go again so I can like play a read the runes so that way the next turn the rune gate is solved? Like, that's legit, but getting go again, paying a bad rate for go again, and then swinging well is not it. Or
Yeah.
flail. Do not build a go again Vynnset deck with the strategy of swinging well after. It's
Mhm.
not going to work well. I
Yep.
guarantee it.
Yep. Hurting yourself to deal one stick for 1 on hit rune chant. Not there.
It turns Iron Rot boots into 3 value.
Yep. Don't do it.
It's so
Don't do it, guys. All right. Let's talk about some non-attack actions. We've been talking about all attack actions recently.
Yep.
Let's talk about the 2 non-attack actions that you got. One is a rare,
Mhm.
one is a common. Envelop in Darkness, a 1-cost Shadow Runeblade Shadow Runeblade action. Blocks for 2, very rare. It says create a rune chant. The next attack action card you runegate this turn gets +3. Go again.
Yep.
Featured strings, 3-cost Shadow Runeblade action that blocks for 3. You may play this from the Banish Zone. The next attack action card you runegate this turn gets +5. Go again with Blood Debt. Okay, Putrid Strings is a giant ass buff, but to runegate a card means that card has been sitting there generally, right?
Correct.
So,
Well, not necessarily. You could have put it in there the turn you're playing this card.
right. What
Yep.
I'm saying is that you're taking a damage from Putrid Strings, Blood Debt, or the attack that you're going to runegate out.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it
Correct.
feels like this may not be enough value unless the on-hit effect is devastating.
I agree. I think Putrid Stirrings is
Oh, Stirrings, not Strings. My bad.
yeah. I think it's not. It's just it has some like niche cases. Like it's a great like anti-fatigue card. You can cycle this card with Unhallowed Rites. Like there is some validity there. There's a decent argument to be had to compare this card to Howl from Beyond. If you think it's the exact same technical rate, Howl costs 2, blocks 2. This card costs 3 and blocks 3, but does 2 more damage. So it's just where do you want the resources? Do you want it to cost more and block better? Or do you want a better rate, quote unquote? So Envelop in Darkness is the second best shadow non-attack
This is the glue, right?
in the game. This is it. This is the bee's knees right here. Like if you, I talked earlier about taking a turn off and doing a 2-turn rotation. This says that with Tunic counter, I'm just out of nowhere going to play a RuneGate card for free and get a lot of value from it, because at the start of your turn, you banish your Phantom Wraith, which is a 2 for 6. You take Tunic counter, you play Envelop in Darkness, you now have 2 rune chance. Bam. There is a 2-card 11 with a Tunic counter.
Yeah, 9 physical, 2 arcane.
Yep. So like that is where because you'll notice a trend when you start building Vynnset, you'll start looking at the shadow non-attacks and get all excited because you can activate her ability and stuff, and you'll realize that half of them are dog water. Probably more than half. There's only about 3 to 4 of them that really make the cut, and this is easily the second best, only behind Shadow Puppetry. And in Vynnset, I think Envelop might actually be better than Shadow Puppetry. I think there's a solid argument for it. So it might. I'd take that back. I'd say it's the best. It's the best Shadow non-attack.
Is this good enough that you're running the yellows and the blues?
In certain, you're always running the reds. In most decks, you're also running the blues, and in some decks, you're running none.
Interesting. Okay.
So always red, most of the time blue, sometimes yellows as well. So good.
Interesting.
So good.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's move on. And I think we're done with all the Shadow Runeblade cards. Let's talk about. I think it's the cycle of equipment. Yep. Here we go. Okay. So there is a darkness equipment cycle. So I'm just gonna. They're all the same text. They're just for different equipment slots. I'll read Shroud of Darkness, which is the shadow equipment head. If your hero would be dealt damage, you may banish this to prevent 2 of that damage, and it has Blood Debt. So only in Blitz, I would presume, and I don't even know if it's a shadow equipment. So we have to think about there's actually several heroes that can play this, right? So I don't think there's any situation where Chain would run any of these.
Well, I'm just trying to think.
Probably
like,
not. Yeah.
The only thing that I can conceptualize is, okay, you get more value if you utilize it the turn before a big push turn, right? Because you're getting 2 per piece. That would be fine and dandy if you weren't talking about a class that has access to some of the best armor in the game.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't make sense. Like I have the ability to have the only spot where I can't get at least 2 block in my armor is my boots. That's it. I can get 3 block from my hands, 3 blocks from my chest, and 2 block from my helmet. I can get 3 block from my helmet with a skull cap. Like there's no reason to run this that I can conceptualize currently.
Unless you really want to speed up your Blood Debt counter, I don't. Maybe in Leviathan,
Yeah, if there was like some blitz deck where like you're trying to get to like the 13 blood debt real quick or something, sure, I could see it.
Yeah.
This looks more suited for Levi than it does
Yeah.
any Runeblade. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay. All right. So let's not waste too much time on that then.
Yep.
All right. So there are 3 Majestic Shadow cards. Dabble in Darkness, 0 cost, 5 power, blocks for 3 shadow attack action. With Blood Debt, it says when this attacks, banish the top card of your deck. This gets -X, where X is the pitch value of the card, banished this way. So it's Shadow Ravenous Rabble.
Mhm.
But it also banishes it instead of revealing. Any thoughts on this card?
When I first saw it, I fell in love with it.
Mhm.
And then I read it twice and I fell out of love
It
with it.
doesn't have Go Again.
It does not have Go Again.
It is not
It does
Ravenous
not.
Rebel.
So the idea here is like I don't know about its applications in Levia. You'll have to talk to Mansan about that. But in Vynnset, I understand the argument. You block the card and it's like technically a 0 for 5, probably if you're on a very red heavy deck. I understand that thought process, but why would you not just play Bounding Demigod? It's literally the same stat line, but you can manipulate it where you guarantee the 4.
Yeah, this is
It
probably
just doesn't.
Yeah, this feels like a card that's probably better for Levia.
Yeah, and you could get the free banish, but like you don't have the Go Again to take advantage of the free banish. Like the only card that you really score by hitting off this top is like the Funeral Moon. Like that's a great card if you can hit it.
Okay.
But other than that, it's like it's okay. I'm not gonna say it's terrible. I'm just saying there's better options.
Sure. Okay. Next card, Chains of Mephitis. This reminds me of the most complicated MTG card of all time. This is a 0 cost blue shadow action aura, blocks for 3. You may play this from your banished zone. If you do, it enters the arena with a doom counter. At the start of your turn, destroy this unless you remove a doom counter from it. If a hero would draw a card during an action phase, instead they banish the top card of their deck and may play it this turn. And it has Blood Debt. Pretty complicated card. Has an effect on both heroes. Deploying this takes your whole turn, though. And it will last 1 or 2 turns, depending on where you played it from.
So
hard to evaluate this.
Yeah, when I read the card first, I was like, oh man, I can shut down 3 of a kind. But then I reread that line. It says, if a hero would draw a card during an action phase, instead they banish the top card of their deck and may play it this turn.
Yes.
So it actually makes 3 of a kind better because they can play all the cards.
No. They can't play arrows from banish, right?
Why not?
Arrows say you have to play from arsenal, right?
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, okay. So I guess the better way to put it is if the 3 of a kind whiffs and you draw like a bunch of non-attacks, you've helped them.
Yes.
But if it hits like it's supposed to, then I guess it does kind of get in the way. You just have to be very careful. I think this will be a very targeting card. You know, I don't think it'll be ran in most lists. I think if there's ever a meta where everybody in there, like it doesn't even work with Art of War and Fi, right? Because he's just going to play those attacks that he was planning on playing anyway. Like it doesn't stop anything. So there's nothing in the game currently that I'm looking to shut down with this card effect. And there's just better blue 3 blocks. So
okay.
Not great, but maybe sometime in the future.
All right, next we have a card that doesn't pitch. This is the first one we've seen in quite a while. Dimensional Vortex is a 3-cost card that does not pitch. It's a shadow action with Blood Debt. You may play this from your banished zone. If you do, it costs 2 less, so it costs 1. And it says each hero banishes a card from their arsenal. Guaranteed way to stop a combo, I guess. But this doesn't have Go Again, and you still have to pay 1 for it.
Correct. If
but
this
it
card
can sit
was
in the
2 cost.
But it can sit in the banished zone for a while. I guess, against some combo decks.
Yeah, and deal damage to you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
true.
it's like it's
Yeah.
like if this card, it would be an auto include 3 of if it costs 2, and you
Mhm.
could just play it from free. Like you could block 9 damage with 3 cards, and then just like Vynnset it into the banish zone, create a rune chant, and then just rip it. Like that would be insane, the amount of value you could get from that. Because Vynnset is actually a very difficult deck to utilize the arsenal, because you can't just block your hand out and then arsenal. You always have to like, banish a card. So it's like very expensive to just establish an arsenal. You kind of have to do it in one fell swoop. And so that's where cards like this become very, very risky. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that you got to have a really good reason to be going after their arsenal to utilize it.
Okay. All right. Move on. We got the rare and common shadow attack actions. There are 3 of them here. Hungering Demigon is a 2-cost, 6 power, block 3 shadow attack action with Blood Debt, and it says if an opposing hero has 1 or more cards in their soul, you may play this from your banish zone. When this hits a hero, banish a card from their soul. Okay. It's a popper that blocks for 3.
It's the worst CNC. Yeah, it's just a worse CNC, to be honest.
Yeah. So light heroes would have to get very, very popular for this to see play. Soul Butcher is a 2-cost, 6 power shadow attack action that blocks for 2 with Blood Debt. If the defending hero has 1 or more cards in the soul, this gets +2.
Yeah. The one thing that takes all
2 for 8
of these
is pretty
cards,
good.
I mean, it's okay, but like the one thing that takes all of these cards out of the window for me is they're not playable from banish.
Mm-hmm.
So like
your action point is almost certainly going to be used to play the thing from banish,
or you're taking a damage. So anything you read on the text here, you are taking a damage to execute it, which means you automatically have to take a value off of it, and then now they suddenly become below rate.
Right. Okay. Soul Cleaver, 2-cost, 6 power shadow attack action that blocks for 2 with Blood Debt. If the defending hero has 1 or more cards in their soul, this gains go again.
Mm-hmm.
So all 3 of these cards are hating on light heroes, and they're probably more for Levia than for Vynnset,
right?
Because they're 6 power cards. All right,
sure.
Let's just move on then. Okay, we have 4 rare and common shadow non-attack actions, so quite a few choices here. Let's see if any of them are good. Grim Feast is a 3-cost shadow action that blocks for 2. You may play this from your banish zone. If you do, it costs 2 less. Gain 3. So it is Rejuvenate at home. I don't think Rejuvenate at home is good enough. So let's just move on. Violent Inquisition. 2-cost shadow action that blocks for 3. You may play this from your banish zone. If you do, it costs 2 less, so it costs 0. Target hero banishes the top card of their deck. If it's red, they lose 1 life. So this deals 1 damage for 1 card. And it doesn't have go again? Am I missing something?
So this card's not great, but it's better than it's perceived by most. And the idea behind it is you have to remember with the Vynnset ability, you are making a rune chant when you banish the card. And so this is a very easy way, like a very convenient way to, I mentioned the whole take a turn off cycle of making rune chants and then burning them on runegate, right? This is a very easy way to still get value if maybe they don't present as much as 9 damage. Well, you can keep this card, play it, make the rune chant, possibly deal a damage, and still have, it's not an attack, so you're not burning the rune chants. That's the important part. It's an effective way to deal a little bit of damage, make a rune chant, and not execute the rune chants. That's the most important part. It's not the best card. I think the best version of this card is in blue, because if you're ever against a blue heavy deck like Icelander, you can probably get a lot of value there, something like that. Because unlike Briar, there's no priority window before with Vynnset's ability, because it's at start of turn, not action phase. So it's very easy to play like zero cost things and then just say, look, I'm done, kind of thing. It's okay. I would say it's like a solid like 6 out of 10. Not the best, but not the worst.
All right, Beseech the Demigod is Nimblism for Shadow Heroes.
Love
is a 0 cost shadow action that blocks for 2. Choose an attack action card in your banish zone. It gains +3 until end of turn.
Love it. There's no other way to put it. I mean, it's like it literally is just Nimblism that doesn't have a restriction on it. It does. It does have a restriction on it, obviously, but it's one that's so easily navigated. It's easier to play this card than Nimblism and Briar because you run Blue Autumn's Touch. Like you can always banish a card and play Beseech, right? Like it's just that's how the deck should be designed.
Sure.
And so it's just you're always getting value. It's a free way to extend, to pump something. Wish I could say the same for the next card.
Tear Through the Portal is the next card. 0 cost shadow action blocks for 2. Choose a red action card in your banish zone. It gains go again until end of turn. So I guess the yellow version would target a yellow, and the blue version would target a blue and give it go again.
Right.
So giving a red action card go again at the cost of a card.
I've never been a fan of spending a whole card to just give go again. Mauve is the exception because you're also applying a on hit effect that's very relevant in the decks that run it. But this is just literally, this card just screams desperation. Like you just you really need go again, and you really need to turn on Vynnset's ability. If there's any build where like you were really relying on that arcane damage hitting, like you have to have it happening, and you're trying to do something afterwards, this could make its way into the list. But just with Mauve and like Shadow Puppetry, there's usually enough go again. You also have like Blue Lead the Charge and stuff like that because everything's on the more expensive side. This is it's definitely better than Grim Feast, like by a mile, but I don't think it's probably on the same level as Violent Inquisition. Like it's okay, but you really gotta have a reason on why you're playing it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, that takes us to the crossover portion of our video. The Runeblade cards. All right, so there are several Runeblades to talk about. One of them is 1 foot out the door already, but they're still relevant to talk about. So there's Briar, Viscerai, and Vynnset. And let's just talk about the weapon first. Scepter of Pain is a one-handed scepter Runeblade weapon. Once per turn action, you may pay 2. Deal 1 arcane damage to any opposing hero. Create a rune chant token for each damage dealt this way. So this does not have go again. And it also pairs with the Grimoire. And I guess if the opponent does not have Arcane Barrier, this is a way to kind of set up, possibly, with Vynnset. But yeah, this doesn't scream good to me.
There's also like the very, very odd combination of you could run Scepter and Flail.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know why you would ever do that. I'm just saying you can. It is an
double
option.
Scepter.
No, because you can't ever give it go again, right? So there's no reason you would ever swing it twice. So this is the only like real case that I've found for this is blowing up Actual Wings. Like you can just like literally just wipe them all out in one fell swoop and get a lot of value of doing so.
Opposing target.
Yep. So anything that is a target, it just pings it. It's like a super singe, right? And it's just stuck on the board. The only problem is like historically, Runeblades have been perfectly fine with Dromai, so you don't really need that, right? But I guess if there was ever a situation where Dromai started getting the edge due to Ash Wings specifically, you could leverage this, or maybe Prism has gotten so good at like protecting angels or something that like Scepter, but like the angels have 4 health, so you're not killing them, and she'll just AB the one coming at her, so she'll stop the ward. The only application that I've found so far is just pinging down Ash Wings.
Okay. All right. Uh, Dyadic, is that how you pronounce it? Carapace?
Dyadic.
Dyadic Carapace? The simplest of equipment, AB2. Blocks for 2 with temper. Runeblade equipment chest. I think a lot of people do not know how to evaluate cards because this card is ridiculous.
It's so good.
It is so good, and people that think this is bad probably don't know how to use your equipment very well.
Oh my god.
The fact that you have a temper 2 block on the field that is not like Courage of Bladehold or Scalata, where you have to preserve the the second attack, means there's so much implied value from having armor, right? Your opponent are less likely to attack you with things with breakpoints because they're like, they could just block it like this. There's when you add multiple pieces of equipment together, you could create a fridge that you could just throw in front of very, very annoying things like CNC, just move on with life.
Yep.
And this saves sideboard slots. Because
that's the big one,
this card is nuts.
Insane. Yeah, I literally said during a stream about 2 weeks ago, I said I would kill for just Skeleton with no text. Like literally just 2 block temper on the chest. And boy, did LSS deliver. They gave me that and saved me sideboard slots, and I'm forever grateful. So anybody that's doubting this card, I would beg them to just look a little further and
look at how you block with your armor. Let's put it that way. Like armor is like how you use your armor defensively is so important, and the fact that you're guaranteed to get a second block out of this just helps so much. Like, let's talk about all the things that this can help you with. This helps you against Guardian Crush, helps you avoid Warrior Reprise, shuts down Mask of Momentum, blocks Mauve Sky breakpoints, prevents a Azalea arrow hitting from you. Like, on and on and on and on and on. And with Runeblade's Fridge,
also,
how many breakpoints can they shut down? Like 6?
How many times have you played a Runeblade Mirror and taken damage on turn 0 because you weren't running AB? Here, you still get the 3 block, and you can pitch and block all of Rosetta on turn 0.
It's nuts.
And at no cost. So the card assuming they could swing Rosetta the first turn, which is 90% of the time, it literally says this is worth 5 life.
All right,
literally.
Let's get some specifics out of you. Okay, so in Briar, are you playing this?
100%. It's a sideboard piece because Tunic Rosetta is just so strong, right? But it opened, like, you start entertaining ideas of like fatiguing Icelander and stuff like that. Like, these are real possibilities now because you're condensing sideboard slots into certain things. But in the Runeblade Mirror match is forever changed with this piece of equipment. If you don't bring it,
and
you're at a disadvantage. You're such at a disadvantage because if you're playing against Viscera, right? Like, how many times do you get pinged with something that like has conditional go again, like a meet and greet or something? You can just shut that shit down with an extra card that you have, and their turn's over, right? And you can still, you might waste an AB because it's only coming in for 1 arcane, but who cares? You're just turning their turn off. It just gives you so much with so little downside.
Okay. Viscera, are you playing this?
Yes. Once again.
Okay.
Same philosophy really across the board. I don't think there's any like really differentiation. The only argument really is like, do you play Tunic or do you play Husk? Right? And if you're
in Vynnset.
Right. And then so it's Tunic or this in Briar, it's Ironweave or this in Viscera, and it's Husk or this in Vynnset. And so it'll be a sideboard piece across the board, and just whatever matchup you'll say which one's better.
Okay, sure. All right. Good card.
Yep.
Run it. Bequest the Vats Beyond is a 0 cost Viscera specialization. Runeblade action. Blocks for 2. This is one of the very rare specializations that block for 2. The next Runeblade attack action card you play this turn costs this many less for each rune chant you control. I don't know when you would want to play a card to discount a card when you could just pitch a card.
Exactly. I mean,
it's a Runeblade action, so it turns on Viscera's hero ability, right? So, but I don't know.
yeah, but the whole deck's designed to be
to have
efficient, right?
yeah, to come in with Rune Flash and like Spellblade Assault and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels like I mean, is this possibly used in Ninth Blade? This could discount Ninth Blade by 4 or 5 at its best.
Ninth Blade already has that text on it.
Yeah, so you could go with 4 if you have 4 rune
Or
chants,
you could just have
or
a
5
blue
rune chants.
Or you could just
Well,
have
yeah,
a blue pitch. Like,
yeah,
like,
I'm stretching here. Yeah,
all you're doing is you are taking on so much risk for the possibility of adding 1 damage to a blue pitch. That's all. That's that card summed up.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying, if I can discount something by 3, then I get the value of a blue pitch, but I also get a trigger on Viscera. That is it. That is that card summed up in 10 seconds.
Okay, sure. All right, Runic Reckoning. 1 cost, red pitch, Majestic, Runeblade action, blocks for 3. This costs this many energy less for each rune chant you control. The next Runeblade attack action card you play this turn gets +3. Probably good enough, right?
This card is very deceptive. So, Josh, how crazy would it sound if I told you this
is
card?
Sharpened Steel.
But what if I told you this card was equally as hard to pull off as Revel in Runeblood?
I would say that sounds very crazy, considering you can get a rune chant very easily in Vynnset. Or
I'm sorry, in Viscera. I'm
Viscera.
using Viscera as an example.
Yeah, okay, yeah. There are many turns where you begin with 0 rune chants, so you'd have to grasp into.
Yeah, 90% of them you start with 0 rune chants. So to play this for free, the whole Viscera curve is set on a 2-cost card and a Rosetta swing, right? And so you have to play a non-attack and then play another non-attack to create a rune chant or an attack, whatever, either one. So it could be like non-attack, swarming, or another non-attack.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can play this because now it's free, because now it fits the curve.
Mm-hmm.
But then now you have to play another attack after it to extract the value, because it doesn't say, unlike Oath of the Arknight, it says Runeblade attack action card, not Runeblade attack.
So you can't just swing your weapon.
Yeah, if it said attack, this card is way better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still very, very good in Vynnset because you're always making a rune chant at the beginning of your turn. Mm-hmm. So this is probably one of the best cards you can arsenal in Vynnset. It's just it's always playable. Mm-hmm. But in Viscera, a lot of people are going to try to run this card and be very disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Briar, you should never play this card because you don't play Runeblade attacks. So
yeah, you're generic. You're generic Runeblade.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's a nice summary of all those cards. Okay, you have several builds that you have been working on recently. Can you just give us a quick summary of you said you had 2 builds?
Yep. I currently have 2 that are like serious. I've tried about 12, but I've narrowed it down to 2 that are actually, because it's a very difficult hero to kind of manipulate and make work, because you're forced to make decisions. Okay,
so why don't you talk to us about those 2 decks, just the general strategy and tactics behind it, and any particular card choices that you think are interesting.
Yeah, and I will preface the description of the decks. Tonight is July 5th. I'm doing a stream at 8. This video should drop sometime probably tomorrow. If you want something more in depth on the decks, I'm going to be going over these decks for like 2 hours tonight. So just go to the YouTube, TheCardGuyz YouTube, where you're finding this, and go to the live section and then just pull up the Vynnset live stream, and I will be going over all things Vynnset, and I'll be showing the deck list and all that stuff. So that will be a more in-depth resource than what I'm about to say, because I'm just going to go real quick and dirty here. So the two builds for Vynnset that I have is the first one is called Vynnset Spaghetti, and it's a very like fluid, aggressive build where the whole deck is designed to never pitching, right?
Okay.
It basically, I asked myself the question, I was like, why did the devs make runegate? And it was like, so I could have free attacks. Well, then I asked myself, why the hell would I pitch a blue card if my attack is free, right? The only reason Rosetta Thorn is great is because Viscerai and other heroes can like play an attack and then use the extra resource into the weapon. If you have to pitch a whole card to Rosetta Thorn, it's not that great, right? Like it's okay. You're still getting 4 value from the card, but it's not as good as, it's not good enough to offset the risk associated with playing Runeblade and playing a deck with hard ratios. So I play a lot of cards like I forget the name, but the one that makes oh man, it's +3, makes a rune chant, the shadow non-attack. I play a bunch of those, and I run very few blues, and I run a lot of 2 costs. I run a lot of read the runes. So this is the spice. I'm still confirming whether this works or not. I'm 99% sure it does. But I think what's going to take Vynnset to the next level is one interaction. And that interaction is, I found that red and yellow read the runes is actually broken in Vynnset. And the reason for that is you can do your two turn cycle Vynnset setup, whatever you want to call it. But then if you run Rosetta Thorn, what you can do is play your free runegate card. Then you can pitch a yellow or a blue. Activate Rosetta Thorn. Okay. So rune chants discharge on activation, not when the card is attacking. Okay, that's the change they recently made with the interaction of Spectra. Previously, it discharged when it was attacking, which never happened when you ran your weapon into Spectra. But now it's when you activate the weapon is when the rune chant layer is created. Okay. However, there is a priority window called the layer step that is between the activation of a weapon and when the weapon is considered attacking. Okay, so if you're following me, what you can do is use your spellbound creepers. You've already played an attack, so those creepers are on. You pitch a yellow or a red with tunic counter, whatever you got to do, and you can activate Rosetta Thorn, hold priority in the layer step, flash in or read the runes. Rosetta Thorn will see that you have played a non-attack action to deal the arcane damage, so you still get that extra value. But the most important part, you do not discharge the rune chants. You hold them for the next turn so that next turn you can literally just 3 for 7. You could deal 10 damage with one, or I guess theoretically 7 damage with one card. You can just block 9, banish your 3 for 7 runegate, and then just jam it, right? And literally deal 8 damage with one card. So it's massive value if you can do that 2 times in a game, which is very easy to do so because not many people are pitching AB2 to stop the Rosetta Thorn, so it's easy to keep the creepers. I think that's the play that's really going to take Vynnset over the edge. So if you stayed for the end of the video, there's your little present. And thanks for sticking around with us. But the last build is more blue based, pumping up attacks, going more tall rather than wide. And that build does not utilize Rosetta Thorn for that reason, because you're not really concerned about go again, therefore the web. So it does kind of lean on flail a lot more, and you're just trying to play as many pumps as you can, like Hal and the one that makes a rune chant. You're trying to get off those cheap runegate effects or whatever the case may be. I cannot emphasize enough that when you're deck building with Vynnset, the difference between 2 and 3 runegate is massive. Always add more 2s than 3s. It's super important.
Okay. That's a good summary. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's gonna wrap us up here. Vynnset looks like a very, very interesting hero. A hero that is gonna be probably, if I had to guess, it's probably the hardest one to build. It's not as intuitive on what to do. So it'll be up to Runeblade pioneers like Nathan and others around the community to break that.
Yep.
All right. Any other closing thoughts? If not, we'll wrap us up and get us out of here.
That's it.
All right.
That's it.
Well, I hope you guys have been enjoying this two-part series. Again, if you want to find out more about Light Warrior and Mr. Bolton, that was part 1. Go watch that. Anyways, this has been Josh Lau and Nathan Crawford with TheCardGuyz. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day. See ya.
Take care, everybody.